So, electronics, cell phones, computers, satellites, TVs, nearly everything that we use today that incorporates electronics use what we call microelectronics, or integrated circuits, or very tiny structures that use electrons or waves to communicate within systems. What we go to work to, what we go to school to, and what we come home to entertain ourselves uses these things. And look at what these things have done for the world, just through applied microelectronics. I myself have had the pleasure to experience many fields of science, ranging from various fields in physics, engineering, and electronics, and particularly have had the passion to explore nanotechnology, or nanomaterials, as you can see on the screen, and plasmonic biosensing devices, we call them, which allow for new types of detection methods in biological systems. Nearly 55 years ago, an individual named Richard Feynman gave a very famous talk titled "There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom." And in this talk, he kind of outlined the idea of using very small things, nanoscopic things, to better improve the technologies that we have in this world. And he inspired many great physicists and chemists and engineers to look into this field and look into how we can use these very tiny things to better the future. Here we are 55 years later with not much being applied with nanotechnology. Unfortunately, as far as nanotechnology goes, we only find these things in paints to bring out hues, or in chocolate shakes to give a better taste, because of a high surface area, and that's what it comes down to. 1 kilogram of 1 millimeter particles has the same surface area as 1 milligram of 1 nanometer particles. Just imagine that. So moving on, I think that there are kind of 4 main concepts that build technology or allow for science to be applied in the real world. The first of which I think is electronics, and we kind of already discussed that. So as you can see on the screen, there are some applications of microelectronics here. If we look at the nanoscopic world, or things at 10 to the minus 9, microscopic being at 10 to the minus 6 meters, at 10 to the minus 9, we can use things such as graphene, or a single layer of carbon atoms that allow electrons to travel in very different ways in electrical circuits for more efficient computation. The second of these concepts is fluidics. And fluidics is what allows man to control the way fluids behave. And what you see on the screen is what's called a microfluidic device. And these devices use very small volumes of liquids, which allow for, in essence, large volumes to not be needed. Say, imagine having laboratories on a single chip, whole hospital laboratories on a device the size of a cell phone, where we can take these devices to third world countries or in-field applications to do full blood analysis of patients. Imagine these devices being used in the everyday triage. Instead of having to do full blood runs on people with milliliters or vials after vial of blood, we can take one single drop of blood and be able to do what would normally take weeks to do in a matter of minutes. The next concept is mechanics, or things that are dynamic, things that kind of move, gears, wheels, things like that. What you see on the screen are what we call microelectronic mechanical systems, or MEMS devices. And these devices are mechanical structures on the microscopic level, which we can use in, say, micro-robots, which is one field that I'm working in now, which is going to be very interesting in the future for applying such robotics in, say, medical field, for in vivo surgery or surgery within the body that would allow us to not have to open up the body to do complex surgical procedures. The last is statics, I like to call it, or materials. Things that are non-dynamic, things that are kind of static. Things that we can build things out of. What you see on the screen are vanadium microstars, and then some atoms being aligned in a circle. But nevertheless, it's again kind of the idea that these things all together, the electronics, the mechanics, the fluidics, and the statics, kind of all build everything that we have in one way or another. So, if we look at how micro and nanotechnology can be applied in the world, it's really what leads to the next industrial revolution. By having these four main concepts that are already applied in current technology to be applied in micro and nanotechnology is what is going to expand all current fields. So an industrial revolution is kind of what collectively advances all fields. So if you see some of these things here on the screen, these are what some fields that you might go into yourself may change through with the application of micro and nanotechnology. MRI machines, or magnetic resonance imaging systems, are a very interesting device. Not many people fully understand how they work, but in essence, they work off of detecting proton spins. But nevertheless, they utilize magnetic and electric fields. And with this, we can use nanorobots in these systems to be able to control their position and the specific release of drugs in the body. I think when people hear nano, the first thing that they think of is nanorobots. But in that case, nanorobots are a thing of the distant future. And what's even more interesting is that we don't need nanorobots or nanomechanical systems to be able to have nanomaterials act as robots. Because things operate in different ways at different levels, we can use nanomaterials to behave in very particular ways with adding molecules to the surface of a sphere. So for instance, we have two spheres on the macroscopic level, or where our scale resides. And those two spheres do not interact with each other. You take those two spheres and you take them down to the microscopic level, and we have something called van der Waals forces come about, where these forces actually work to polarize these particles and attract them. And at the nanoscopic level, something called plasmon resonance comes about, where local electric fields oscillate, or the electron clouds oscillate because of an incident incoming wave, where we can use these plasmonic particles to direct photons through a system, to do speed of light calculation in systems for more advanced and efficient electronics. So coming back to the MRI, if we were to take magnetic nanoparticles and we are to attach, say, particular drugs, whatever it may be, to the surface of that, we can guide these magnetic particles in the MRI with magnetic fields to a particular location within the body, to say a zone within the lungs as cancerous. And once they are there, and we can see them in the MRI, we can trigger these particles to release their drugs with an electromagnetic wave pulse, or a radio frequency pulse. And seeing these things, especially in the medical field, is very interesting because this is going to allow for very new means of surgery or just procedures in general. I think speaking to a lot of students, one thing that is very critical in how you proceed in life and with your work is to not only understand the fundamentals of work and knowledge, but to apply that. And that is the key. I see myself hoping to bring micro and nanotechnology to the consumer, to the various fields that you saw previously, and better advance technology as a whole. And I think to do this, we must look to the finer things. Thank you.